Hello and welcome. I am Kanchi Shah, General Manager for Content and Strategy at Strategy, and it gives me immense pleasure welcoming you all here to this exclusive webinar on VDI as a digital business enabler, empowering productivity for mid-sized businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you on behalf of Dell Technologies, Microsoft, and Strategy. According to a recent study by Global Market Insights, the virtual desktop market is anticipated to surpass 55 billion US dollars by 2020. And it's rightly so because today the way we work, and especially where we work from, is in a state of flux. Virtual desktop infrastructure delivers the digital transformation that businesses need to empower their remote workforce. This enabling them to collaborate and innovate from nearly anywhere. Through conversations in this webinar today, we will see how virtual desktops make perfect sense to today's organizations, bringing together greater security and the potential of delivering real workforce transformation that is optimized for operational excellence, security, and employee experience. VDI promises to empower remote and hybrid workforces with secure, high quality end user experience by streamlining how medium businesses deliver, protect, and manage their environment from edge to core to cloud. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure of inviting my colleague, Ms. Pratik Tokas, Director at Strategy, to join us and deliver a keynote address. Let's welcome her with a round of applause.
Thank you, Kanchi, for the introduction. And as we are here to discuss about the buzzword VDI, let's understand a bit more about it. The overall business landscape has undergone several changes over the past couple of years, especially post-pandemic. So from business office operations to online only activity before the more common setting that we currently are in, the hybrid setting, we are now seeing that organizations have been navigating ways to save cost and meet employees' evolving demands. In 2023, the current year, which started with the economic uncertainty, is likely to tighten the business outgoings. It's become more important than ever to ensure businesses have the appropriate technology stacks, which is cost effective, scalable, as well as secure. There is no denying that employees' expectations have shaped business strategies and made hybrid working an integral part of the working culture nowadays. This model only seems to be gaining more momentum considering the exponential growth in digitization. Technologies such as cloud and virtual desktop infrastructure, so-called VDI, have enabled organizations to facilitate their operations remotely, irrespective of location. Today, where you are located is starting to matter much less when it comes to being able to do your job. As long as you can connect to the internet, the chances that you can access the same people and same information as if you were working in an office building, we are connected anywhere and everywhere on the go, whether it is 35,000 feet in the air or in a coffee shop. Business need to ensure they can provide a better customer experience as well as employee experience without compromising the security of their digital assets. Apart from easy accessibility, business needs to ensure productivity from employees and business continuity in case of disaster, where data needs to be kept safe and backed up. Considering all these scenarios, VDI is actually the key to all these answers. But we need to here understand more that why businesses must be leveraging this VDI asset more in the current year. In 2023 economic environment, the business ecosystem is continuing to evolve and companies are considering to tighten their expenditure. Hybrid working is still sought after post-pandemic. According to a survey, 8 in 10 employees who worked remotely during the pandemic plans to work in a hybrid setting even in the coming future. To cater to the workforce demands while also being able to do so securely and cost effectively, organizations must take advantage of VDI. VDI, being the technology, enables businesses via various approaches. The state of art of this technology is a must have, as it is only minimizing the cost and optimizing the purpose, but also ensures a high quality experience for your employees. Over 95% of cyber attacks originate at the endpoint. With VDI, one can gain more control over environment and potentially eliminate any threat at the endpoint as well as the network aspect. Organizations need to understand the security aspect to the very granular level. It also enables high availability of your workloads, meeting the SLAs and provide an enhanced as well as consistent user experience across devices, especially when now your employees needs to access the information across multiple devices rather than just getting restricted to the device which is there on premise in your organization at the office location. Provides a centralized management structure. It enables users to patch, update, and modify all virtual desktops in a single go. Imagine on a single click, the entire management of your devices can be done easily. There is an ease in scalability. Integrating the VDI on a host server can reduce hardware requirements as well as its purchases. So definitely there's this cost efficiency aspect being attached for the organizations. There's also synchronization. It's easy to replicate user profiles and time to desktop using VDI. It can conveniently synchronize user profile data while reducing latency by using a virtual remote desktop. Employees who are geographically distributed nowadays, VDI allows end users to gain remote access to the files, applications, as well as cloud services from any region, any location, enhancing their experience. Even for on premises, businesses are providing this flexibility of BYOD, better known as bring your own device, on organizations' network, which further reduces the load on organization and it eases the overall experience of employees. We conducted a survey among CIOs and technology decision makers in 2023 who were working towards digital transformation within their organization. They had a certain business led expectation for which every alternate decision maker was being decided that they wanted to improve the productivity for hybrid working culture and intended to increase its share in IT budget for the coming year as well as for the next year. VDI is specifically a boon for businesses, especially medium businesses, which gives them an opportunity to hire from a global talent pool without any restriction of geography, the location, time, as well as infrastructural challenges. So businesses need to assess carefully all these aspects, all the advantages, the pros it is offering, need to work very closely with the consultants and take a call that how they can properly leverage this opportunity in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pratik, for setting the tone and getting the ball rolling. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we will now get into a conversation to see how business leaders are perceiving this amazing technology. Let's hear it from our experts who will join us now on what they feel VDI can do for their businesses. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as informed, I am with an eminent panel of business and technology experts. With me in conversation, we have Mr. J.P. Dwivedi, who is CIO with the Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Research Institute. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you.
And we also have Mr. Prince Joseph, who is the CIO for SFO Technologies. Thank you for joining us today, Prince.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kanchi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing that the business world is more competitive than ever today. While the internet creates a level playing field, it also exposes organizations to issues in terms of security and productivity. And the modern workplace has changed drastically over the past few decades. Today, you can work from anywhere, from your home, from a coffee shop, or a few blocks from your office, or even thousands of miles away from another continent. And this has gone a long way to boost productivity. However, it has also led to some challenges. These challenges are exactly what we will try to uncover through the discussion that I am going to have with this eminent panel. And very quickly, I'm going to launch into my first question. So, Mr. Dwivedi, I would like to ask you, what are the imperatives of streamlining the implementation of a protected and a high-performance digital workspace that holds the potential to transform any organization?
Sure. So you said two words, protected and high performance. And these two have very distinct meanings. See, protected means information should go to the destination where it is required to go, and only to that measure, to that extent. So identity and access management, uh, network security, cyber security, intrusion protection, all these security apparatus are required to ensure a protected environment. And then high performance environment means the compute resources, the fast, high speed storage resources, the non-hindering network resources are available. You look at traditional desktops and the traditional arrangement where everything was so strictly driven by LAN. There were several checkpoints blocking the speed and causing the concerns related to the security also. So now when we are talking, we are in era of edge computing and we are talking of zero trust network. This VDI apparatus helps in ensuring that we have a secure and high profile environment because we have simplified the overall configuration to a significant extent. It doesn't matter whether you are connected from San Francisco or New Delhi or Timbuktu. As long as you have a secure connection with the internet, your application is on the cloud, you are good to go. System knows, the application knows you are the person. There are certain tokens, certain security authentications. Once those are taken place, you are good to go and you have access to whatever you wish to have to, you are supposed to have. The other thing is, looking at the bring your own device that gives you extra flexibility. And this virtual machine giving you a very special container, if you like, where everything related to work is limited to that container. You cannot flip between the containers, at least you cannot pass through the information. So you are now limited to that particular zone, that space, and you are allowed to work unhindered and with high speed.
Brilliant. Mr. Joseph, your take on this?
Okay, so Mr. Dwivedi has actually given a lot of good facts. I was just going to go back to a little bit of history in terms of my experience with VDI. The first one, when I was working with my previous employer, about 15 to 18 years back, we deployed VDI solutions to a branch office. And if I were to just give out more facts, we were based or headquartered in Dubai, and we had opened an office in Fiji, and they needed to access resources sitting in our data center in Dubai. And the vehicle that we saw was VDI. It was actually a bit ahead of its time because back in the day, that VDI solution actually miserably failed. Because if you compare with why it failed at that point of time and why it works now, all your resources were sitting in your data center. All the links, the WAN links, your internet, your connection, your pipe, your last mile to the users sitting in a place like Fiji was only in kilobytes. So nothing was loading. It was very, very slow. So user experience was not there at all. But this was something which worked when we tested. and we tried to push it and push it, and finally we had to give up. And I think in that time, the solution was that we moved some resources locally. But it come to, fast forward to 2023, you don't need to worry about the links in between because you're actually moved all resources to the cloud. Everybody has gone in and deployed in places where bandwidth is not so much of a constraint anymore. So if you are talking about a global organization, worried about having an office, say in a tier 2, tier 3 in a village, you used to have a problem about a decade back. Now in India especially, bandwidth and speed is not really so much of a problem. It's available even on your smartphones. So this has actually democratized that whole place and exploded this. And to me, VDI also got another boost when the pandemic hit. So you're overnight suddenly forced to make solutions, come up with solutions that actually meet multiple things. And I think in the framing of the question, the answer is hidden, right? The two things primarily that you look for: you want your performance to be there because that's what drives productivity and that's what drives motivation, and that's the only way you keep them engaged. And the second one is, from a corporate point of view, my corporate data should be protected. It has to be secure. So, and in that journey, VDI was actually was in the right place at the right time, and leveraging that actually proved to be the solution that met all the requirements of that point of time. And I can talk more and more about it, but for this part of the segment, that's what I wanted to start with, Kanchi.
Brilliant. I couldn't agree more. And while we're at this, deploying VDI solutions from decades ago to now has been a transformation of sorts. And it brings in different kinds of issues and challenges for an enterprise or for a medium organization. So I want to touch upon that bit. While we're trying to transform workspaces for a medium-sized or a mid-sized organization, what are the building blocks or the strategies that we need to put in place?
Asking me, Kanchi?
Any one of you could take it up. I would like to pose it to both of you and we could take it up in any order.
Change management is certainly a very big issue. People are used to certain pattern. They have a privilege of a full desktop or laptop where they are working, and then they are working for personal and official things. You have a storage where you can keep your files and you can share over emails. You have complete freedom on the machine that you are working with. When you are dealing with a thin client kind of situation, where everything is now stored in a central server and you are connected through something called communicator, and you just have a screen and keyboard and nothing is there behind, there is a very natural discomfort. And for me, it was not easy to push the thin client culture in the organization. Very first thing that it gave was getting rid of the UPSs, and those were hundreds of them. So maintaining them and creating network of UPS devices was a challenge, and that helped the management understanding the value behind thin client. Trust me, VDI is not a cheaper solution. I don't think anybody could argue that there is any cost advantage, significant cost advantage there, unless you go to BYOD. That's a different sort of arrangement altogether. So real problem was, coming from the desktop to thin client, where the users really were trying to avoid coming to this kind of situation. But then there were other problems when you are working on a desktop and there is a problem with your UPS, and somehow power goes off and then your work in progress is gone. So that kind of frustration was there, and that has been very amicably resolved through the thin client arrangement. In hospital situation, thankfully, nurses are 50% of the workforce, and they are amenable to change. They are the very first adopters of any transformation that we really experiment with. And this has been a blessing for us. And I have always gone to nurses with all the new ideas, and they have welcomed. So we can, continue talking about several practical challenges. But let us hear from Prince.
Right. So my mind was jumping across topics when you were speaking, because one of the things that, and I'm probably going to answer the question from somewhere in the middle and then go across.
Oh.
So the part on cost, you're right, because it is not a cheap solution, but the cost has come down, but it's still not a cheap solution if you want to deploy it to thousands and 10,000 users. There is significant cost there. It's the same thing with cloud. While you get an early advantage in moving there, you're excited about that, but over the long term, unless you're really careful in managing it, your cost will balloon so much that you'll find it difficult to justify it. The other part is, for me, more than the challenge, the opportunity was more in the fact that we are all trying to bring in some sort of transformation, and transformation really means that you're trying to do something in a far better, more improved, innovative manner. That means you're trying to do things which is do more for less. And when we try to look at some of the changes that happened, and in the context of VDI, prior to VDA, what was the people using who really needed to connect remotely? They needed to have a VPN client, they need to have an authenticator, they need to do multi-factor. There are 2-3 steps they need to go through. And that's made life a little easier with this. Of course, there is still MFA on this. But the other solution they used to use was RDP. So you RDP to, there are people who RDP to some machine and then jump from there to other machines. And all you can do is that much. But now with VDI, you actually now got the experience that you got the entire desktop at home, and you can work on whatever device you like. That means the ushering in of BYOD was actually helped a little bit. So we now have previously we would say everybody in the company, there is 3 models of laptops for you. Depending on your role, you will get either this or this or this, and that's it. There is no negotiation. If you want to jump between layers, then that becomes a different workflow and approval altogether. But now it didn't matter. If people are saying that I prefer to work in a Mac, doesn't matter. I can give you the VDA client. And when you're working in the office, you're working in that environment, which is all standard tools applications. And my data, I know, is secure because it's managed in that way. So I don't have to worry so much about even the level of security or the antivirus status of those endpoints. So a lot of changes, a lot of improvements, a lot of operational headaches come down. And VDA is centrally managed. That is actually another beauty of it. So to me, that's this is where some of the workplace transformation in those steps, this tool set has been a really good advantage.
Brilliant, and I couldn't agree more on that point. Well, I'd like to take it forward in another direction. We've seen that the pandemic has brought forward these capabilities where we were actually pushed to work from our homes. And right now that is translated to working from anywhere. And while our workforces are geographically disparate, how do organizations empower their remote workforce to provide exceptional employee experience? Mr. Joseph.
Okay, so in this, I can just cite an example from the other day. There was a meeting that was called in one of our factories. And that factory is about 25 minutes drive from my office. So they said, there's something important to discuss as a customer escalation that has come. Can we all meet in this meeting room? And that meeting room is in another location. And it needed 4 or 5 people to come together. They said, well, we're going to meet for about 15, 20 minutes, but we're going to be driving for more than an hour. And not even from an IT point of view. Functional people are saying, guys, why don't we just do this over Teams? We can quickly decide and close this instead of having to drive there and all of us waste an hour each. And this is the kind of comments that we want, because we want people to start thinking digital, taking advantage of the collaborative tools we're giving them. And that's what is important. So to me, I want to try and evangelize this and not coming from IT driving certain tool usage. I want people to say, I'm taking advantage of all of this. And this is a small example of that. So right now, when you look at, we are a group where we have software, we have manufacturing, we have F&B. In software, probably the work from home nature or the workforce is probably close to 80 to 90%. Whereas in manufacturing, it's the other way around. It's less than 10% who work from home. You cannot work from home in the manufacturing side. So when you have this mix, then how do you actually manage and how do you actually maintain a sort of posture for an employee, saying that there is an organizational expectation, there is an employee expectation, there is a compliance, there is a customer commitment. How do you bring it all together? So you need to have the right set of tools where you're making sure that anybody who is working from anywhere is at that point of time, you are in the same place. It feels like you are all connected on land locally. And that experience is given by no other solution but that than by the selected the right VDI tools. And that's one of the things that thought is what I find as standing out.
Absolutely. That is a true example of productivity over physical presence that you just cited. Mr. Dwivedi, things don't work like that in a healthcare setup.
Can't you see, we are talking and we are talking virtually.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would have to travel all the way. Joseph from Kochi, I from Delhi, and I meet somewhere in Bombay. Look at the advantage that this technology is giving right here.
So, sir, I can just intervene. I'm from Kochi, but I'm actually joining the call from Dehradun, sir.
Oh, you see.
You put me while
I'm from Delhi and I'm joining the
Kochi
call
rest
from
like this.
Bangalore. So, right now,
So
I'm
Mr.
sitting in
Dwivedi is
Bangalore.
currently in Bangalore joining the calls from there.
So this is what technology is doing. You talked about empowerment. So just think about it, how we were doing it before. Either there is a some sort of VPN tunnel where our bandwidth is definitely restricted and there are different levels of authentications there. Or you do some rudimentary method like having some screen share or RDP and using TeamViewer or any desk. Look at the security threats there. When you are open to the world, anybody can attack you and your traffic in the middle. Start showing something from anywhere and disrupt your conversation. So these technologies now have empowered people to actually work from anywhere, connect from anywhere, there was a concept thrown by Cisco, I think way back in around 2010. It was called telepresence. And we are now seeing real telepresence coming. We are actually present from wherever we are and connected, seamlessly working together, irrespective of the geographical divide. As Joseph said, unfortunately, we fall in the second category. Work from home is not much of an option for healthcare because of our nature of service. So the extra bit of work happens when it is beyond office time. We will volunteer from home or wherever, but at least we are enabled by those tools, technologies to very quickly jump into a conversation, have a meeting, and God forbid if there is a security incident or there is a disruption of any sort, where we need to set up a war room, command room, people with different expertise can come together very quickly and start working on a problem from wherever we are. I think the highest credit that we have to give to is the telecommunication and the revolution that has come there, helping us seamlessly connecting and virtually be present from wherever we are.
Absolutely. In your articulation, Mr. Dwivedi, you touched upon security, and that's exactly what my next question is. How do you get security right while implementing VDI, which is where you get to protect your data, of course, without sacrificing performance?
So yes, so you see, there are certain hygiene factors that we need to definitely have in place. And very first and foremost is having a well-written, comprehensively prepared information security policy, procedures, and guidelines. Biggest, weak point in any apparatus, any organization is the employee. And employee, sometimes they do it unknowingly, sometimes some of them may do it knowingly, but we need to constantly keep educating them, keep them on board with the security practices and guidelines. Other is having right set of tools. And these tools are very important. For example, having, if we are talking of a traditional environment, having well configured firewall with proper rule engine in place, having well configured switches and routers in place, having proper identity and access management for the people, having sophisticated tools like security incident and event management, people call it SIM, having a well orchestrated and programmed response system in place. So we call security orchestration and automated response system, SOAR. Then having something like, somebody constantly watching the behavior of all the users and entities. We call it UBA, user and entity behavior analytics. So that analytics is constantly taking place. System is able to decipher that this particular device is not supposed to throw this much of load and these many messages per second. What is happening here? There must be something wrong. System should be able to quickly decide that I need to quarantine this machine and really look at it, what is going on, or at least warn the security arrangement, security people responsible for security. Then there are certain, security operations center providers, because not every organization will have all these sophisticated tools bought for themselves. So better, outsource it, give it to somebody who runs the command center, and then they onboard 50, 100 or 500 customers. They can very easily leverage these tools available with them, and they have experts. So having machine only is not enough. You need to have the men or women who can run that machine effectively. So having well-trained professionals and then retain them. So there are lots of challenges here in this particular space, as everything is now depending on security, information technology as its backbone. We need to make sure that this backbone is really secure and healthy all the time.
Mr. Joseph, could you walk us through some of the security concerns that an organization can face while implementing VDI?
So after getting that security 101 class right now, because I need to record all of that, like you've actually covered it from all the layers, all the tools, there's hardly anything left for me to say. The concern and the importance of security has now reached such a high level, or it's a pinnacle, that the managing director, chairman, they all come into this conversation once in a while. And the other reality is there's two risks right now, because we have a lot of data, and data is not sitting just in our server, data is everywhere. So we have a concern on how that is really protected. Second one is, I've heard this, it may be a joke, but it may be not also. It's that there's only two kinds of organizations apparently in the world. One is those who have been compromised sometime, and those who don't know they have been already compromised. So depends on where we are. Now, I can also tell from my experience that we have gone through phases where we have actually been attacked. We have felt the brunt of it, and we have taken and we've learned from those measures, and it doesn't stop. Now, with remote working, the attack surface just extended to an area where you seem to have very less control, because if I were to touch on the specific aspect, there's three areas. One is I'm leaving a lot of responsibility suddenly on the employee at home to make sure that he maintains a standard posture and ensures that everything that is on his desktop is updated, patched, etc., etc., etc. So apart from doing his job, he's also going to do the job of a security operations admin, which he may or may not do. And if he fails to do that, he's exposing the entire network. And while we work for, if I come back to the manufacturing side, two of our biggest customer segments is healthcare and aerospace and defense. And when we are manufacturing equipments for them, you just cannot afford to have anything go wrong. There are so many steps, there are so many compliance aspects to be done, so many records to be maintained, so many testing levels to be done, that you can't even lose the testing record. Because if you're doing an MRI machine, for example, which is one of the things that we do, you can't really go back, you can't really afford to lose any test equipment for 15 years or 20 years. There's some very drastic, very exact conformance that is expected from us. We can look at it from even defense side. So suddenly we are very paranoid about all this data that we hold now, and we have to be. So I can't leave it to a weak entity, a weak link like an employee who might forget. And that is just not done. So how do we actually get control on that part? So that is one, and that's where something like this, which is a centrally managed solution, which we can update centrally, which is managed by professionals. And as the Vedi sir also said, yes, there is also managed service security service providers who are needed, because we're not going to have the entire stack of security team percent professionals with all the skill sets and all the tools knowledge with us. We need to leverage people who are outside, and we'll be able to get an alert on, if something is missing or if something is to be done, and those actions can be quickly taken. So this is a couple of advantages that I see on and touching on this particular point. And moving on from security, I think the point I was going to say, okay, that just slipped my mind. Can you might have read this part. There was another thing which I was actually thinking of, which I lost. Okay.
Well, while you gather your thoughts around that, I'm just going to take us into the parting question that I have for both of you, because I have a view on the clock and we've almost, come to a fag end of this conversation. And the question that I would like to ask both of you, gentlemen, is, going into 2023, CIOs are looking at improving collaboration across all devices to empower productivity for the workforces. What are some of the essential features that you would expect from a solution or a partner that will actually help you define the right kind of strategy for your work?
So let me give a hack at it first, sir, and then you can give your wisdom on top.
Sure.
But to me, the two areas that I struggle with, and this are not features that you get in these tool sets, but these tool sets should have some way of measuring it. One is with a lot of workforce which is now separate, you are beginning to lose, a lot of employees, but the new employees, you're not really aware of them anymore. You haven't connected with enough of them. You haven't spent enough time with them. You're only communicating with them over electronic medium. So that is one area where we need to do something different. And there could be many aspects within this tool set itself, which probably can add to it, where you're actually now building, you talk about metaverse and things like that, but there's experiences that can be built on top of the tools. That is one which I would look at and see, is anybody thinking on those lines? Are we just looking at doing a particular feature, function, or can you look at doing a little bit more where there is a factor where you suddenly connect with people, not just on, here's a workflow level, but on a different level? Because at some point when you do come together, I'm seeing that it's there's an awkwardness, because you've never really worked with each other face to face for over a year, and some people are so new they don't even know what's the rest of the organization. So that's one aspect which I which I try to look at in these tool sets.
Brilliant.
I think Prince has covered it very well. All that I would like to add is, see, as a CIO, I want to move more and more away from technology. You will laugh at me, and go more and more closer to the business. What I want to do, or I want to become, is a trusted advisor to the CEO and the board, that they should look at me from the business transformation point of view as a thought leader. And I should be able to tell, well, there is a better way to do things. And this is where technology can help, rather than struggling, with the mundane things of keeping the light green all the time and managing the escalation metrics, which is not a good place to be in. Unfortunately, this is a very common finding, that you go to any level of event, conference, even critical operations, and you will always see technology faltering. You will always hear that there is a server down. You will always hear that, wait a minute, we cannot start this event because there is a technical glitch. Now, these are the areas that, CIOs are also silently scared of. And they also somewhere pray that things go well. So rather than just praying, what we need is a dependable layers of services, where there are people and tools, technology and procedures well in place to take us away from technology and help us coming closer to the business. That is what I would like to add.
Brilliant. I think you've actually summed up the theme of our entire webinar, which is, being the business enabler that you would like to be. So that's a brilliant takeaway for all of us. And that's as much as what we have time for. So I'd like to thank both you gentlemen for your time and for your insights and the lovely gems of wisdom that we've been able to uncover through this conversation. It was a brilliant learning experience for me, and I can vouch for the audiences too. Thank you once
So
again for
much.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a brilliant conversation that I had a pleasure of indulging in with Mr. Prince Joseph and Mr. JP Dwivedi. With that, it's time now to see how organizations can strengthen their security posture with managed detection and response. And to engage in this conversation, I'd like to invite Mrs. Srihari Dantapani, is the advisory architect at Dell Technologies, and is going to be in a conversation with Mr. Manoj Balan, the senior systems engineer for alliances at VM. Let's welcome them both with a round of applause.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Warm welcome to everyone who has joined in today's webinar session. We have an interesting topic about innovations on the VDI space. There are a lot of things we would cover in, especially what's happened post the COVID-19 aspect. What's the future of VDI looking forward? I'm Manoj Balan. I'm from VMware.
Thank you, Manoj. Hello, everyone. Just to introduce myself, this is Srihari Dandapani. I work as a consultant with Dell Technology Space. Like Manoj rightly said, I think there's no better time than we are today, as so much of innovation has evolved, especially post-pandemic. You're going to hear both myself and Manoj discussing about certain intuitive aspects about how VDA is evolving today, or virtual desktop infrastructure, how workplace transformation is being adopted by you as customers, and we'll also definitely cut through the certain aspects of why one needs to consider it if you're not in that space. So let's see what we have got to talk to each other. So with that said, Manoj, do you want to kind of chime in the agenda, what we're going to discuss, so the audience gets a hang of what they can expect today?
Sure. So we have a pretty crisp agenda today, which is going to revolve around the various aspects of VDI. So we'll begin with what are some of the challenge we have seen in the current times, the last 2 years that we tide over. What are some of the challenges that's going to be in adopting the newer workforce or workplace environment? What are some of the security concerns we have around adopting VDI? How can a customer start adopting VDI? Those are some of the things. And finally, we'll wrap it up as what Dell and VMware together has to offer in terms of the VDI solution. So, Srihari, coming back to what we are discussing today, what do you think you saw as a challenge, especially since the last 2 years, for a lot of our customers and users in accessing the kind of the applications and things like that they do day in and day out? So what do you see some challenges that was there from a user perspective?
Absolutely, quite a lot. Like I said, this is the best time that we can even discuss about it. In these few years of changing times, the primary perimeter of issue what the customers have been experiencing, or what we have been told as OEM, is that accessibility to the data centers have been cut off, right, with all possible not so good reasons. And second, the culture of hybrid workforce has increased because not everybody accesses to the workspace, and accessibility to their local workstations that used to be available at their office space has transformed and migrated into bring your own device, or anything that is available within natively for them. So given that as a lead to an opportunity, we have evolved and customers have jointly evolved with us in adopting more of a workforce as a transformation. If I'll have to call out more specifically to convert this with some statistics, right. By 2020, anything before how drastically things have changed in these 2 years, the projection of VDA adoption was projected to be about 5.3 billion. But after these 2 years of tough times, the trajectory projection has evolved. By 2025, we will be somewhere about 18.3 billion. Okay, so if I have to take the real numbers of the projection that was called out in 2020, adoption of VDA workspace was about 5.3 billion. It was called out by Markets and Markets statistical report. But all that has happened in these 2 years, the trajectory projection has increased to about 12 billion. So by CAGR, they've increased by about 18% adoption. The reasons are nothing other than what we've already known of. It's the virtual workspace or the hybrid workspace that is evolving. But interestingly, from VMware's perspective, Manoj, I will leave this to you. What is VMware's vision towards this adoption of workforce
Right.
or workforce transformation, to be more precise?
Correct. So I agree with most of the things that you have said. In fact, the last 2 years we have seen a lot of our customers and users getting adopted to the hybrid model of working, and I think that has stuck around. So you can't just dictate new terms in walking into offices,
Yes.
right? That's there. Second is a lot of users have SaaS-based applications. So no longer there is a need to walk into office and get access to applications and various stuff, right? So keeping this in mind, we foresee a new trend, which we term, and as well as it's an industry word, as workplace 2.0. So that's the new thing that we foresee from VMware perspective. So there are a lot of things that we see will be the characteristics of this particular workplace 2.0. Some of them would be centered around how you get users access to their data. The second would be around how secure this entire aspect is. The third, where are you letting the users get connected from seamlessly, basically, right?
Understood.
So a lot of these are some of the key aspects of Workplace 2.0, and we'll discuss them in detail shortly.
So Manoj, you did specifically call about Workplace 2.0.
Right.
And being very closely associated to VMware, I've also read and heard about the vision that VMware has about accessing any data from anywhere, from any landing zone, regardless of what the endpoint devices are.
True.
Now, let's take one step ahead and help customers to understand. If a customer who falls into the conversation of prerequisite that we are discussing, where they have a prerequisite of transforming or probably in the journey of transforming their workforce into a digital workforce, if they choose to, and regardless of what their endpoint devices are,
Right.
and of course, a hybrid is a work culture, hybrid workforce is a work culture. From VMware, what are the options of platform-based offerings that you have?
Right.
And associated to it, what are the mode of deployments? Because we're still in the phase of not everything is easily accessible and available, not everything is fully opened up as far as accessibility to data center. So which means cloud also starts becoming a choice of mode of options. So you may want to kind of elaborate on the mode of deployments as well.
Sure. So, Sriri, that's a pretty good question actually. So, if I just break it up, there's a lot of solution offering that comes from VMware, especially in the VDI segment. So, I don't have to familiarize the audience with what is a VDI and all those nitty-gritties, but if I put it very lucid and simple format, what we're expecting the customer to get as a solution is something that is anytime, anywhere accessible. It's a web-based solution. It's secure end-to-end, okay, and it has got all the operational capabilities in terms of helping the IT administrators know who's logging in, what kind of virtual desktops are deployed, and all those things, right? So it's pretty intuitive from that aspect. And the other question that you posed on deployment choices, right? So today is a world where our customers are spoiled and they have a lot of flexibility in choosing the platform they want for the VDI solution. It can be as simple as an on-premise setup, or it can be a cloud-based setup. So both the platforms are duly supported from the VMware aspect. The name of our solution is VMware Horizon. So that's the software portfolio we sell for the VDI solution. And as I stated, we can have customers look at both the on-premise and the cloud-based aspect. For today's conversation, definitely we would be talking a lot on the on-premise aspect. Because cloud is pretty vast. There are a lot of platform choices customers
Yes.
have. There are many vendors available. So we'll not get into the nitty-gritties of that, but more from an on-premise perspective. Now, there's a good thing over here. We do support a lot of on-premise platform, but working together with Dell,
Yeah.
there has been a platform of choice. It's been there for quite a long time. We use it from anything as server to core to edge, a lot of use cases. So, Srini, what do you think would be the best choice if a customer is looking to deploy VDI on premise? What could be the most trusted platform that they can fall into?
Okay. I will take a lead from where you left,
Sure.
right? Dell's vision is what exactly or precisely called out as core to edge to cloud,
Right.
right? As much as we don't get into a lot of nitty-gritties on cloud formats, but I think as Dell, as being a visionary towards customers' requirement, we've come into a conclusion that no longer cloud is a operating model.
Right.
Right? We've tested, we've researched, we've put all the money on the table to conclude that cloud is not a destination, but rather it's an operating model. Now, keeping cloud as an operating model, Dell's based offering are primarily focused towards on-premises,
Right.
but that doesn't stops from having a hybrid cloud or multi-cloud strategy as well. That's where the triangular story of having the either workforce or VDIs deployed, made available basis on an on-prem data center which is core.
Right.
It can be extended to a remote data center which is edge-based offering, or can also be made available at the cloud. So, and it doesn't stop for a customer to repatriate the data and the users from a cloud back to on-premises. So, to summarize your question, we strongly believe our on-prem based solutions, the underlying platform and the bare metal solution topologies, which appreciates the intelligence of vSphere with Horizon, is built on hyperconverged infrastructure.
Right.
And also gives me a very proud feeling to say that we've been consistently dominating this market of HCI worldwide, certainly for about 19 quarters in a row as HCI, and with a super selling model such as VxRail, which is jointly built with VMware for VMware workload and supported by VMware, leads the overall story on HCI. So our conversation is typically driven or steered with the HCI based offering integrated jointly with vSphere, with the storage virtualization that comes with vSAN, and the Horizon based offering built on VxRail. So we can take certain aspects around it to let know the customers what are the level of automation and orchestration that VxRail with Horizon can meet the demand of VDI.
So if I summarize that, what you intend to say is Horizon on VxRail. That's the de facto standard platform that you would
Certainly.
definitely
Yes.
have the customer look for, especially when they're adopting VDI as a technology.
Absolutely, right? Because there are second choices as well. Probably unnamed it can go,
Right.
but the adoption rate towards vSphere worldwide stands the largest on virtualization platform. And what else can get better when you integrate your VDI platform also jointly with vSphere? So the success stories have been quite a lot and many with VDI based, Horizon based offering on VxRail.
Right. And just to add in, definitely there are a lot of benefits Horizon can derive out of a hyper-converged solution, especially like a VxRail. You look at it from any kind of user-based deployment that you're going to do, be it say a task worker or a power worker, so there are a lot of things that comes in handy, especially the way the underlying technology of VxRail exposes
Yes.
to both an administrator as well as a user.
No, good point, Manoj. In fact, I'm sure that we have a mixed bag of audience who are hearing us this. And while we say it, I have been in and out of an audience workshop who's classified their workloads, as to speak in the language of VDI personas. Different personas like you mentioned about task users, power users, and knowledge users. The adoption rate towards power users intensified with the demand of graphic has eventually grown in the recent past. Again, the reason goes back to what we discussed a few minutes ago on accessibility to physical workstations are getting nullified until unless everything opens up full-fledged. So which means a user who's earlier accessed their workstations powered with dedicated graphic cards, probably from NVIDIA, who leads the market on graphic industry, now no longer has a touch and feel of the workstation, which means be it your Internet of Things or devices that he is basically natively accessing needs to have the power of what a physical workstation would have granted. So the demand of graphic-based workload, power users, accessing 3D based applications has phenomenally increased. Do you agree to it?
Yeah, I definitely agree to that part. In fact, off late we have started seeing a lot of our customers exploring the usage of AI and ML based applications.
Precisely.
Yeah, and there is a sudden demand of graphic intensive workloads.
Yes.
Right? So none of our conversations of VDI doesn't end without probing them about the nature of application and more specific the graphic nature of application that they are going to load.
Yes.
So that's something we foresee as well. And there are beautiful frameworks that are available both with us, and I'm pretty sure it's equally available from Dell aspect on how do you wrap up this entire graphic-based workload demand, especially on the AI and ML aspect.
So innovation hasn't stopped in there. To answer your question, extensively with Dell's innovation towards VDI-based offerings jointly with NVIDIA's evolution. We're speaking about the first where VMware has done their best in the platform of CPU,
right,
and they've evolved pretty good on the graphic space with graphic processing unit, and certainly now it's the era of DPU,
right,
data processing unit, where we are forcing or offloading the amount of overhead what a graphic-based application would have required into a SmartNIC technology.
right.
When I migrate the overhead that requires for the graphic-based workload onto a dedicated SmartNIC, which is supported with ARM cores, which itself is an x86 architecture with its own dedicated ESXi operating system, the amount of availability on the native hypervisor jointly built with VxRail and Horizon Space to concentrate and manifest the workload for the customers has become a focus. And like I said, DPU has become a part of it, right? With that said, Manoj, over to you. How do you see grid virtualization, right? Not just the compute and storage and network. How do you see grid virtualization evolving with in support of Horizon in this conversation?
Right. So a lot of things have evolved over the past couple of years. In fact, we had this concept of bringing in a virtual workstation, right? That's the easiest way to get adopted with graphic cards. But then with certain technologies that come together with NVIDIA and VxRail, we are talking about multi-instance GPU share.
Yes.
Okay? So we not only just slice it at the card level, we are going deeper, getting it sliced at the core level also.
Exactly.
So that is one aspect. The other aspect is we are seeing customers exploring the use of graphics not only at a VM level but at a container level as well.
Precisely.
Right? So we have a lot of our customers who are not just talking about a VDI frame, but it's a ecosystem wherein they are touching on a VDI with a container based aspect, Kubernetes, you name them. So a lot of ecosystem things have come in around the grid and grid based virtualization.
Absolutely. Manoj, so as much as we discussed today about the probability of evolution around VDI, but I'm sure the customers would be more interested to see the justification of the cost, what they'll have to put in forth. For two aspects. One, return of investment. And second, they may be a part of modernization of every possible workload, and one of it could be VDI. So let's take that bit of customers also into consideration. Keeping that in mind, what is VMware's pattern to accommodate along with VDI as an evolution or as a workload? Can other part of the workloads within the infrastructure space can be accommodated within the same evolution? Want to throw some light to it?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, Srini, that's a good question because as you know, none of our customers operate in silos. So it's not just the VDI workload they'll be going ahead with.
Yes.
It's always a mixed workload environment. And there's a fantastic architecture from VMware where we try and accommodate a lot of workloads. And we try to segregate them as a soft partition. So this aspect, what we talk about, we try to segregate it from management workload domain perspective as well as the workload domain aspect. Now the management is common. It is common for any kind of workload that the customer runs in. But the workload is where the customer can be choosy about the type of software they want to load in and the type of hardware and the associated data services. An example could be, say, the customer is running VDI with graphics, so that becomes one part of or one partition of the workload domain.
Okay.
Now he can have the same thing without GPU aspect, so that becomes the second flavor.
Yeah.
Okay. The third would be for a compliance perspective, a workload which needs some kind of data at rest or encryption mechanism.
Yes.
So we have this flexible architecture where we try to bring in multiple workload domains, but they get managed common from a common entity. We refer to this as a cloud foundation architecture, and this accommodates both the server VMs, the general purpose virtual machines,
Yes.
as well as the VDI based aspect.
But let me take a pause there, Manoj. As much as you say you can accommodate both data center virtualization along with VDI, another question to you. I've had customers asking me, if I'm going to put all my investment onto VDI, can I use VDI through the day and HPC or the night?
Yeah, definitely. Customers can do that. Actually, the way in which they can be more flexible in choosing the workload where they want to land in that particular application, they can do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So it can be an environment where they can run some of these applications depending on the time of the day,
Yeah.
and a different one on the different time of the day. Absolutely, very much possible. Now, to chime in what even I'm sure you would have also heard some of the customers asking about, and most of the customers are skeptical or paranoid to know what are the security features you are bringing in
Yes.
into any kind of solution. Right?
Absolutely.
So when we jointly engineer with Dell and VMware together, we try to ensure security is at every layer. Now, what we try to do with security, especially at the software layer, is we bring in certain capabilities which is at the hand of the administrator. It can be as simple as restricting copy paste, especially in a VDI environment. Right? So you don't want the user to take in the data or copy some kind of input
Sensitive
back into
data.
the environment. So you can do some levels of restrictions over there with respect to say a bilateral copy paste. You can bring in concepts of watermarking the VDI with your company logo and things like that. So to a large extent, at the software level, apart from the protocol, the ports that we use, there are certain things like this that greatly benefit our customer when they start using the VDI aspect. Now, I'm pretty sure when you look at it from the platform that Dell offers, I'm sure there would be something similar that comes in from the security aspect.
Certainly, with PowerEdge again being the leaders of the server space,
right.
I don't have to specifically call out the certification nitty-gritties what PowerEdge server caters. But from a VxShield perspective, as a platform, as an offering, it's time that we're being extremely intrinsic about converting the overall topology into a software-defined data center, or rather I call it as a full-blown SDDC architecture. So when I say a full-blown SDDC, it begins with your compute virtualization, extends to your storage virtualization, and in order to address all these securities and vulnerability threats what customers can go through day in and day out, the amount of cyberware attacks that we have increasingly seen, we are recommending or making a very strong recommendation to customer to attribute towards network virtualization also. The minute we talk about network virtualization, I always been bounced back with a customer asking, do we don't require physical topology of network? It doesn't mean that. A physical topology of network is substantially required in support of a hypervisor-based network virtualization, perfectly that comes from the offering of VMware's own NSX portfolio. That the kind of segregation that you spoke about, portfolio A with one type of workload, portfolio B with second type of workload. Probably portfolio A and portfolio B can still be two entities invested and sponsored, and their vested interest is not to have accessibility to both their data. That's where software-defined networking or network virtualization gives the liability to a customer to define policies basis on what level of firewalls has to be applied, what is the load balancer that they want to kind of create between the loads, what is the level of perimeter gateway that they want to restrict. So we encourage customers, when you're getting into a workforce adoption or a VDI space moving into your all possible users, it's good to have policy-based segregation so that your security is at trust. We also talk about zero trust. Zero trust basically refers about how much is that you can rely on the hardware along with the kind of policies and software that you have deployed so that you're feeling confident that your data is perfectly at rest and taken care. Over and above, we also encourage customers to go on the mode of encryption. vSAN supports data at rest and data in transit as well. So those are license dependent, but it's better off to not have anything. Instead, have either a key management server associated and lock your data, encrypt the data and decrypt only when it's required. So in summary, as VMware and Dell, I don't think we have left any stones unturned, especially in the time where there's a 12% increase in cyber attack. We've been hearing and reading in papers. We have not let any stones unturned as far as the security implementation of the customer's workload is concerned. We have taken the utmost care.
Yeah, just to add in, you did refer to the zero trust architecture,
Yes.
right? So that's where couple of things that we do, not only which is confined to the VDI space alone, but the space beyond VDI as such. So one perfect example is where is the user logging in, especially what kind of device they are getting logged in.
Yes.
Right. So one of the framework that we extend over and above VDI through the workplace solutions is to try and address and see the security of the devices itself, security posture of the device itself. And we then add in a flavor of cloud-based security on the deployed VDI itself. So we have solutions around Carbon Black, which is a cloud-based security.
Absolutely.
That's something that goes hand in hand with the VDI solution. And customers can be absolutely sure that they have the right user accessing it from wherever they are logged in. And even at the VDI level, they're securely they are ensured that there is no security breaches happening over there.
Manoj, so much so that we spoke about and discussed on the aspects of workloads and keeping VDI as a centrifugal force. But what's the whole thing about VMware being extremely fascinated about running this VDI as a platform? And I love the word which VMware uses, desktop as a service, on a HCI-based platform. As much as I'm extremely involved in it, I would like to hear the explanation on what is the vision of VMware running this base platform on a recommended HCI-based architecture.
Right. In fact, that's something which we see as the pulse of industry today.
Precisely.
So we've seen a lot of customers trying to move away from the traditional 3-tier architecture to a hyper-converged based infrastructure. And what we see is the more closer you're running your applications or your workloads to the resources that they need, you will never see customers facing challenges with performance, latency, and all those other aspects. That is one part to it. The other thing that we expect our customers to do is just be concerned about the workload that they are doing or that they are going to operate in that environment. Like perfect example is in the VDI case, we want administrators to spend more time with the nature of users to which they are catering to this service, right? And we want them to fall back on tools that can help them look at how well they are running this operationally. Are there tools available to sense the kind of resource utilization which is happening on demand? Is there a dashboard to look into the various monitoring parameters? Are there ways to add in an automation element to it? Right? So these are some of the things that we see is readily available from a hyper-converged solution. Right? And I'm pretty sure something similar is built in the platform of choice from Dell side as well. So something that you want to chime in around these things that make
you already said it all. You did touch upon the ease of management for administrators. I like you mentioning about the operational efficiency and automation. These are the parameters and the DNA of VxRail or any hyperconverged infrastructure that's surrounded by market. But let me take a very direct step, not to kill down the competition here, but what the competitors' capability of not able to achieve in comparison to the leaders in market, which is Dell-based VxRail. VxRail DNA is to drive the ease of management, like you rightly said. We want to put the customer's focus in innovating their byproduct and not manage the infrastructure. So we are speaking about an infrastructure which is self-managed, which is self-healed, and which is self-supported as well. VxShield's DNA or the code by itself is primarily built around this area for it to be self-healed, and there's a lot of research around AI and ML machine learning abilities that it's gone in there. And secondly, it's the ease of operations. We have brought the ease of management jointly with VMware with Virtual Center, but the plugins around VxShield or the VxShield manager itself is integrated natively within vCenter. So what does it mean to a customer? If you're already a VMware user, chiming yourself or transforming into a VxShield adoption is of ease, because you ultimately land up into the same virtual center and manage your workload. And so is NVIDIA's party to it, where all their plugins are integrated. And third, and the best part of it is the amount of automation what VxShield is involved with keeping API as the native indexing that comes from vSAN. If you as a customer has got the competency to create your own syntaxes around the API protocol, then be a guest the platform offers you. If you're not dependent on any syntaxes, rather you want the code by itself to do, it's natively kind of evolved. For instance, LCM itself, to elaborate, lifecycle management itself is a code, or rather I would call it as a product which is natively available in VxShield. If you as a customer is more concentrated towards as managing the workforce, just the VDI users, and forget about what the underlying platform or the hardware or the infrastructure is concerned about. LCM as a product is a self-sustaining product by itself. There's a joint engineering and investment that's done between Dell and VMware to evolve this product, and there are certified VMware dedicated engineers who work around this, making sure you as a customer are moving from a good known state to another good known state of upgrade, and we call it as a continuous validated state. So for a customer's all interest is to maintain the innovation of the application space, leave the operational efficiency to be delivered by VxShield, and the management to be taken care by the virtual center, and bring the lifecycle management itself a product to keep the vulnerability at checks. Your compliance is going to be happy when you have LCM as part of VxShield.
Yeah, perfect. And just to put it in a different perspective, as in what you stated, we already have the HCI flavor exposed to customers who are running server virtualization.
Absolutely.
And you're just extending it to the language of VDI, right? So that becomes a win-win for both
Yes.
the customers as well as OEM and solution providers
Yes.
like us. So Sriyari, while we spoke a lot of technology aspect around
Yes.
VDI
Yes.
and the different platform choices and the models that's available for our users, one question that comes up in all of our conversation, especially when you put this to customers, the most obvious question that they pose is, how expensive is the solution? Right? Where should I begin with, or what kind of model should I look in for to get hold of this solution? So is there something that Dell does to make life easier for customer to get this adopted?
That's our priority one, ensuring that everybody gets a pie of the cake. VxShield is a heterogeneous infrastructure that accommodates any choice of customer, any vertical of customer, and supported with the PowerEdge engineering, the amount of form factors that's made available to the customer is versatile. And the greatest innovation that comes from the board perspective, native board perspectives from Intel. So the choice of processor and the components associated to it, again, a flexible choice. So we're not a t-shirt selling option that we have, but instead it's a tailor-made solution. Each customer, globally we have about 15,000 unique logos and customers. Each customer's solution is a tailor-made solution, which means it has kind of committed to every possible budget as well. Speaking on the budget, there are more of options that's made available to the customers on the CAPEX. If you have your budget that's already approved and certified, put it all on day one, and then rest for 5 years, you justify your return of investment with the operational efficiency that it's catered back to you. That's your CAPEX. But over and above, if you as a customer would like to choose on an OPEX model, primarily we're talking about a leasing scheme that you don't want to put in all your kitty on day one, but instead reaches for an instance that you want to pay it more like a leasing scheme, and that's our leasing-based scheme provided by Dell Financial Services available. So it is accommodative for any kind of financial use case as well. With that said, Manoj, to close our conversation, Just as these are the last two questions I think you and I must have encountered with
Sure,
every customer.
customers, yes.
How expensive and what is the support topology?
True.
What do you think with VDI Horizon that layered on VxRail is supported for an end customer who's listening to this?
Right. In fact, the one thing or the one statement that I would like to make over here is any kind of VDI solution that gets deployed on the chosen Dell platform, the customer doesn't have to come directly to us. Right? So there are many reasons for it, and of course, the most probable reason is there are well-trained engineers because of the engineering effort
Joint
that we
engineering,
put in. Right. So we have good number of level 1, level 2 engineers that's available with Dell, and a lot of case resolution happens at this level. It's only when we see some challenges at a bug or a hotfix level that's when
precisely.
VMware is called in. So you don't have to worry as an end customer or as a customer who is running these solutions on Dell. There would be challenges with respect to support. It's pretty seamless, and we'll ensure jointly that customer enjoys this support for a longer duration.
So to summarize, it's a one-click support.
Exactly.
Right? Unlike our competitors
Yeah.
who says run into the software
yeah.
OEM for the software bugs and run into the hardware OEM for hardware bugs. Unlikely, we are one-click support. It's one single support methodology. Like Manoj rightly said, until there's an involvement of engineering from VMware is required, it's Dell who supports a VDI-based solution on VxRail. Manoj, as we come into the end of our discussion today, as each other representing Dell and VMware, let's crisscross. Why don't you call out what are the takeaways for today's session from Dell's perspective?
Oh yeah, great. So from a Dell perspective, what I would like the viewers to note about is VDI on a hyperconverged platform. That's the standard that they should be thinking about, right? The second aspect is with HCI, they get the flexibility to add in as different kind of workloads that they want to, depending on the environment or the industry vertical that they are in, actually. And finally, there are a lot of security aspects and compliance aspect that's rigidly covered with the Dell framework.
Yes.
And just to sum it up, support aspect that is unique to both Dell and VMware. That's a single point of contact for our end customers also.
Yes.
Now, Shuri, what do you think customers can take away from this, especially from a VMware point of view?
From a VMware's perspective, first of all, Horizon from a VDI space will lead the market. So second to none on the kind of research that's put in towards Horizon methodologies. And second, the security aspect, which is leaves of no compromise, starting from a threat detection and incident management, or even the endpoint protection, are natively built in, because it's very important of customers being very cognitive of the fact that where the users are being logged in, how are their gateways protected and secured. So that leaves again second to none. And third is the kind of flexibility what VMware offers in accommodating heterogeneous personas within the same native architecture, also heterogeneous type of workloads that gets into native architecture, so that they don't have to buy one single thing just for one purpose. So keeping that to be the most flexible architecture that can one be adopting in this planet Earth. Right? Thanks for sharing the Dell takeaways on my behalf from Manoj, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Shriyari. Thanks for joining me today on this webinar. I hope the audience get a good gist of the entire VDI solution aspect that Dell and VMware has to offer.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Srihari and Manoj, for that amazing conversation. Thank you for showing us how organizations can actually unlock the true potential of a great VDI solution and empower their employees in the modern workforce. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the proceedings for this webinar. I would request you to please spend a few more moments of your time to fill in the feedback form. Your feedback is absolutely invaluable to us, as this helps us improve content, structure, and delivery of our conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, we once again would like to thank you for joining us today at this webinar. I would like to thank you on behalf of Dell Technologies, Microsoft, and Strategy. I hope that the conversations of this webinar have been both fruitful and engaging for all of you, and you have some amazing takeaways from here. With that, it's a wrap. We would look forward to welcoming you at our upcoming webinars and conferences. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.